Pundits in the West are like, what's going on? Why is Israel boycotting human rights NGOs? Well, because those human rights NGOs have been linked to the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, a terrorist organisation. You have to hand it to the anti-Zionists. They've mastered the art of naming their organisations. It reminds me of Orwell's 1984, where the Ministry of Truth is actually the Ministry of Propaganda.
Joseph Cohen there of the Israel Advocacy Project, responding to criticism about Israel's recent designation of 6 Palestinian non-governmental organizations as terrorist organizations.
After a lengthy intelligence investigation, the Israeli government found that these 6 NGOs served as fronts for the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestinian and European Union designated terror organization.
Despite the fact that some EU member states have also halted funding to these same NGOs over payments to the PFLP, some progressive Democrats, including Squad members Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, are coming after the Jewish state, calling on Israel to reverse its decision, insisting that these 6 NGOs are merely human rights groups. You can see some of their tweets on your screen. Here to react, we welcome in Emily Schrader, CEO of Social Light Creative. Emily, welcome to the program. You recently penned an article in the Jerusalem Post and released a video taking aim at those claiming that Israel is repressing Palestinian civil society. If you could just expand on that and why there's confusion as to whether or not these NGOs are human rights organizations. Your thoughts?
Sure. So first of all, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. As I wrote in the Jerusalem Post, I think it's really telling that the European Union, the UN, and even some members of Congress, like members of the Squad, have come out against this, given that there is a lengthy track record of these organizations being associated with the PFLP, which is designated as a terrorist organization by the EU and the US both. So in the case of Al-Haq and Adamir, European funding has already been cut to these organizations, and there are reports, which I referenced in my article, from several years ago detailing what those ties were and how they have used NGOs as a cover for carrying out terrorist activity in the West Bank, even recent terrorist activity.
All right, we also are learning that Congresswoman Betty McCollum now introducing a House resolution to condemn Israel's labeling of these groups as terrorists, as you can see that we showed you earlier. Do you think these progressive Democratic members of Congress don't know what's going on, or they deliberately are misleading us? Or are they confused? And what would be their goal in doing so?
I think that with a lot of the members of the Squad, there's been a concerted effort from day one to present Israel in a specific way. I think that they have a bias, to put it lightly, against the Jewish state that's been very well demonstrated and documented through all of their statements and even their votes. And we saw during the last operation in May how they unjustifiably criticized Israel from the House floor with completely unverified and false accusations of things like apartheid and genocide, which simply don't apply to the situation on the ground. So I think that anything that comes from these members of the Squad when it relates to Israel, we have to take it as something that is being heavily influenced by their bias against Israel.
All right, we got to leave it at that at the start of a new hour. We appreciate Emily Schrader. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Absolutely. A new hour of National Report that starts right now.